Good afternoon. I think we'll get started. I'm Carol Klee from the Department of Spanish and Portuguese Studies and also chair of this year's CLA Assembly. Welcome you to our first meeting of the academic year. Our first business meeting of the CLA Assembly will be held in October, on Tuesday, October 23rd. And for those of you on the Assembly, you can be on the lookout for an agenda a few days in advance of the meeting. But today, the tradition is to have the Dean present the State of the College address, and that's what we're here for today. Following his talk, there'll be time for questions, and then afterwards, we invite you all to a reception, and also, if you have a chance, to view the special exhibition in the Nash Gallery, On Purpose, Portrait of the Liberal Arts. Some of you may be in those photos, but they are portraits of each of our departments, and it's a very interesting exhibition. So without further ado, I give the floor over to Dean John Coleman.
Thank you very much, Carol. Thank all of you for being here, particularly given the flood conditions coming across. For those of you who had to get over from the East Bank, I do appreciate that very much. I was just telling Carol, we've already outdrawn the forum they had for selecting the next president of the university, so I think we're doing pretty well. I only had a dozen people show up to that one. Actually, before I begin, I do want to reinforce what Carol said. The exhibition is fantastic. I think if you haven't seen it, you will very much enjoy it. It wasn't easy for every department to think, and other groups as well, to think about how to portray what they do in a single photograph in one snapshot of time. And there's quite an array in different ways of the departments chose to do it. I think you'll really enjoy it. The quality is exceptionally high. Howard Oransky, who's back there, really conceived and invented and pushed us through in the project to give us the vision. So it is very, very, very much worth your time, so I encourage you to take a walk through. I am pleased to say that the college is in a very strong condition as we enter into the academic year. And let me give you some indicators of what I would point to that would suggest that we're doing quite well. We have, in the undergraduate side, we've exceeded our admissions targets assigned by the university. This year, we were one of only 2 colleges that did that this year, and we have been exceeding those targets now for several years running. We have an all-time high in our 4-year and 6-year graduation rates, and our retention rates are exceptionally high as well. The proportion of our students who are students of color, first-generation students, students who are Pell eligible, all of those are going up as well, both with our new students, our new high school students, and with our transfer students as well. So all of those are great signs. We have been doing an exceptionally good job and been very active hiring faculty over the past several years. Right now, in September of 2018, 22% of the faculty who are here were not here 5 years ago. So the college has really changed a lot over the last 5 years. We have a lot of new energy, a lot of new thinking, a lot of new methodologies, and different kinds of questions being asked. So we are refreshing our ranks, and we are really moving to new generations of scholars. We have, in addition to increasing our diversity among our students, we've increased diversity among our faculty and staff as well. I'll say something about that later. We have had a great deal of success with award winning among our students, our faculty, and our staff, including 2 Regents professors over the last 3 years. One, Chris Eugen from our sociology department, and then last year, Erica Lee from our history department. So we're doing very well being recognized at the very highest levels of the university. Throughout the college, I think we're doing a much better job communicating the work that we're doing and communicating the accomplishments of our alums, our faculty, our staff, and our students. A lot of the credit for that goes to an innovation in the college, which is referred to as CL Agency. It's a student-run, basically a student-run marketing and communications group that drives a lot of the content that gets our message out about the work going on in the departments. They create newsletters for the departments, and so on. We have, over the past 3 years, engaged in a collaborative planning process with our departments to really try to partner with our departments to identify what the key issues are and what some of the potential solutions might be. Overall, I've been quite satisfied with how that process has worked out in practice. We will be entering into our next sort of round 2 of three-year planning. So the first set of departments that came up for three-year plans a few years ago will be coming up again this year, and we'll be making a few tweaks to the process to really enhance the collaborative nature of it that much further. But overall, I think that's helped us develop more of a culture of innovation in our college and in our departments. We've encouraged risk-taking, we've encouraged pilot projects, seed projects, and so on. We have across the college established a strong set of interdisciplinary initiatives. What I particularly like about these is these create intellectual communities that people in the college obviously can partake in, people outside the college as well. But I think it's even maybe even more important for new scholars, new faculty members, new grad students to have a place to plug in, to have communities that are working on questions that they find of interest, and meeting people outside their disciplines as well. So whether we look at our RIGS initiative, which has been doing great work under the leadership of Karen Ho the past 2 years, our Environmental Humanities Initiative, our interdisciplinary collaborative workshops, or any of the other initiatives that we've been doing that have been trying to pull people together across disciplines, the Consortium for the Study of the Pre-Modern World, which was due to the very heavy efforts of J.B. Shank from the History Department. There are these communities now in place that weren't in place 5 years ago. On the somewhat more, maybe you might say sort of nuts and bolts practical side of things, I am pleased to say that we ended our year with a balanced budget, which is not always the case for colleges both around our system and around the country. I can tell you we're in a good position there. One of the things that I've been committed to doing is providing more information about the college. As you know, we have a website, it's called CLARA, CLA Reporting and Analytics, clara.umn.edu. If you want any data on the college, I encourage you to go there and take a look. We will be adding more financial data to CLARA, so you'll get a further sense of the college's finances. We will also be starting to release an annual data pack because we know not everybody wants to go into CLARA and do drop-down menus and all the other fun things that you can do if you get in there and get lost over a couple of hours. There's a lot you can do in there. But we do want to present a set of reports every year. So we'll be, within the next month or so, we will have a data pack of slides, mostly at the college level, some comparing with other colleges on campus, some are across time, some are a snapshot of the most recent year. Just giving you a sense of where we are as a college. How are things changing? What's growing, and so on. And we'll update that every year in September or October. So that'll be coming soon, and I will email you, of course, when that is out. Another way to look at the accomplishments that we've had is through our roadmap report. We put one of these out every fall. The 2018 roadmap report is available at that address. All of you are here, as well as all of the department chairs, will be getting a hard copy of that in your campus mail sometime over the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot of good things going on. I want to take my time today to focus on 3 particular areas. First, I want to talk some about the shifting realities in higher education that we all work within. Secondly, I want to talk a bit about Roadmap Volume 2. And then last, I want to talk about our campaign progress, our fundraising campaign progress, and some of the outcomes that we've seen there. So there are challenges. Now, last year, when I was talking about some challenges, we inadvertently had a photo of one of our associate deans up there, giving the impression that he was one of the challenges, which was not the case. So we've fixed that problem this year. And right there you see one of the challenges that we face. There is a negative narrative about the liberal arts around the country and about whether it gets you ready for life, whether it gets you ready for careers and a successful work life. We all know that state financial support is not at the levels that it was before, has not recovered to where it was prior to the economic downturn, And that is not Minnesota specific. That's true in almost every state in the country. I think there's only 6 where the dollar amount is actually higher now than it was back in 2008. And that is not likely to grow substantially. That's just the reality we face with the healthcare costs in particular that states are facing. Obviously, K-12 costs are high as well. There's a lot of competition for a limited number of state dollars. So the likelihood of seeing a dramatic change in state financials is not very good. Third, some of you are aware there have been a number of surveys out suggesting that there's some public skepticism about higher education and its value, whether it's really worth it to get a degree. There's some skepticism about cost. There's some skepticism about what some view as the sort of the ideological nature of the university, and so on. So this comes out in different ways in different surveys. I think it's been a little bit overblown, to be honest with you, if you look more carefully at these surveys. But nonetheless, it's out there a bit, that there's at least some public skepticism about higher ed. We do have, as I referenced before, a number of budgetary challenges around the U at various colleges and at various campuses. We're part of a system. So from a CLA perspective, you know, we're all part of the same team in that sense, and so sometimes colleges are subsidizing each other when they are facing budgetary shortfalls, and that's certainly the case for us as well. There is an increased sensitivity among families and certainly a political sensitivity to increasing tuition rates. So that is an issue that we're all having to sort of think through. Now, in Minnesota at the U, our in-state tuition actually hasn't changed that much for the whole time, really, of President Kaler's presidency. It hasn't changed all that much. Out-of-state tuition has gone up dramatically for non-reciprocity students. It's been increasing at over 15% per year for the past few years. It's got another year or so to go with that increase. So we did see in our student recruitment this year, we have fewer international students in our freshman class than we had recently, and we have fewer students from non-reciprocity states as well. Not a gigantic effect, but it is a few percentage points, and we'll be obviously the whole U will be monitoring the effects of that. Another challenge that we all are facing, it's not CLA specific, is a demographic challenge. There are fewer students of traditional college age on the horizon in Minnesota, and even more so in the surrounding states that we tend to draw on very heavily. So the competition for students will become even more severe. And then lastly, we have the challenge of technology and how it's changing teaching modes, methods of instruction. And it's an area that we have to be sure that we're keeping up and that we are really on the leading edge of those innovations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later. So those are some of the challenges. But there is a lot of good news as well. We are, in my view, on the cusp of a period in which the liberal arts model will be growing around the world. We already see it in China. We see it throughout Asia as well. As economic development increases around the world, I think we'll see it in other areas also. The liberal arts model, even in parts of Europe that had really adopted different kinds of educational models, you've seen growth of it there as well. So the model itself is actually proving to be appealing around the world. So I will say other nations are seeing the value of this particular model. Secondly, I do think that the value of the liberal arts are recognized by people in other disciplines, whether it's engineering, business, or medicine. I know when I talk with people from those areas, when I talk with my counterparts from those areas, they're extremely interested in how we can be doing some things collaboratively, because they know, as we do, that you'll be a better engineer or a better doctor or a better business person with some additional grounding in the liberal arts beyond what the mandatory university requirements might suggest that you do. Third, businesses are receptive to our message. We're getting exceptionally positive, having exceptionally positive dialogue with businesses, with employers in general, about our students and what they bring to the table in terms of being future employees. at the organization. Google did a study of this. It's referred to as Project Aristotle. They were looking at their teams to identify the strongest leaders. And while technical skills mattered, they also discovered that what I would think of as, rather than saying soft skills and hard skills, I like to say thinking skills and technical skills. The thinking skills that students brought in terms of how to collaborate, how to be creative, how to be flexible, how to ask the right kind of questions, those kinds of things that are generated in the liberal arts, those were as important to the success of strong teams at Google as were people having the right technical skills. In my conversations with business people, and there's many studies that make the same point, industries are seeing that the flexible, adaptive nature that should be generated by liberal arts study is something that's increasingly valuable to employers, given our very dynamic economy. Our fourth point on the good news, our career readiness initiative is a national model, international even to some extent, but certainly a national model of how to help students articulate their liberal arts advantage. So people are noticing that model. I think some students are coming here because of it, and at the very least it has us in the forefront of that discussion. It's really important for us that all of our departments engage in the career readiness initiative, and particularly for those coming up with three-year planning this year, we'll be working with you on that. It's not just about the workplace either. It is about creating a life of meaning. We know from surveys that today's students and the ones coming up right behind them are very concerned about living a life of meaning and purpose. They somewhat get, I think, a bad rap as being only interested in their jobs or their careers or money or income or whatever it is. But I don't think they separate it the way that some of us older folks tend to separate it. They actually think of those two things as intersecting, that you can have a good life, you can have a meaningful life, a purposeful life, and that can be tied in with the career that you do, and that they think of it that way from the start. Well, this kind of life of purpose, life of value, life of meaning is the kind of thing that we're teaching our students from the time that they arrive in CLA. So all of these things, I think, are very good signs. And I'll add just one more. The research and the creative work that we do is very present in our day. It's very apparent to people. I always say if you look at the front page of the newspaper, or you look at the home page on a news website, the liberal arts are all over that page. Whether it's talking about something related to art, and maybe there's a dispute over some kind of, whether it's a film or a piece of literature or sculpture, or whatever it might be, whether it's something about economic policy, crime, education achievement gaps, or whatever it might be, international conflict, and so on. All of that is us. That's the work that we do. So we have an extremely strong case to make that we're doing the work, we're asking the kind of questions that are actually driving national discourse. And I think that's important for us to keep emphasizing, reminding people that that's happening here in this college. So all of those are on the plus side. Let me touch a bit on the more worrisome trends that I pointed to before, because they do pose challenges, but I do think there's also some opportunity there as well. So we have, in my view, I think we're going through a time where we are or we will be really shifting the way that we think about what liberal arts is or are as a model. And to some degree, we're relying on some concepts from a bygone age. The traditional model of the liberal arts, befitting something from a bygone age, is the Model T. And what the Model T is it says the liberal arts are across the top, it's your breadth. You take a course here, you take a course here, you take a course here, you take a course here. So you walk across the top of this T, and you're sampling a lot of courses in different disciplines, so you're finding out a little bit about what anthropology does, and English does, and theater arts does, and so on. So you're getting that broad distribution. And then there's the stem of the T. That's the depth. That's your major. So you're getting the breadth and you're getting the depth. And traditionally, that's been the way that people have actually talked about the liberal arts in actually a specific way, calling it the T shape. But even if you don't use that language, that's kind of the way that we've tended to talk about it. Well, that's an old transportation mode, the Model T, and I also think it's an old way of thinking about the liberal arts. So let me suggest another way of thinking about it. Now, I don't know why I'm comparing the liberal arts to air travel, because it seems like, why would you ever want to compare yourself to air travel, given how much people don't like traveling by air? But I'm going to use it anyway. So the hub and spoke model in air travel is an extraordinarily democratizing model because it gets you from anywhere to anywhere. You don't have to have a direct flight somewhere. You have all these hubs, all these spokes coming out. You can come to Minneapolis, and from Minneapolis you can get almost anywhere, whether it's directly from here or through connecting flights. I'm thinking more of what we do as being like the hub and spoke model. So those hubs, you can think of them as interdisciplinary questions, or you could think of them as the majors that a student might have. You can kind of go either way with that. And what our students are doing is they're diving in at some point in this hub and spoke, and then they're moving out to other areas, and they're bringing that back to their, let's say, to this interdisciplinary question that's in the center, or to their major, maybe that's what it is. And then they're diving out again to do some more work, coming back, and they keep moving in and around this particular web. So our students are not walking across the top of a T in a fairly random form, unconnected to anything. They're actually moving through this sort of space of a web, of a network, of a hub and spoke, and pulling things, we hope, they're pulling things together across these fields. The Model T is very much a bunch of separate disciplines not necessarily talking to each other. This model is more trying to get disciplines to talk to each other and trying to get students to see the connections. So I think where we're moving is to try to help students find ways to do what we're starting to do already in our research, which is connect people up from various disciplines. I think most of you who've taught have probably had the experience of a student coming to you and saying, well, this was so amazing. What we talked about in class today is exactly related to what I was talking about in this other class I had 3 days ago. And of course, we stand there and we say, well, that's great. And we also realize, totally unplanned and completely an accident. But I'm glad that it worked. And you had that experience. I think where we'll move is that we want to try to create more of those opportunities for students to have these connecting aha moments that get them so excited and so passionate about their knowledge. It gives them a much richer map of the knowledge universe, I think. It gives them a better way to think about how the analytical tools of different disciplines fit together. And as I said, I do think it keeps them more excited about the work that they're doing in the liberal arts. Now, our career readiness work actually provides a bit of a model for thinking about this, because our career readiness work, while we certainly respect what the majors bring to the table, the career readiness work is also a liberal arts readiness model. It is, what is your liberal arts advantage, more so than what is your specific advantage from being in major A, B, C, or D. So we've already started to move down that road to some degree, at least, through the career readiness initiative. And I think we know how to do this work from a research point of view. I'm not as sure we know what to do in terms of our outreach and in terms of our teaching in thinking about this kind of model. One thing I could imagine that we're doing, for example, is we're developing far more modular courses for students and short-term courses for students. So a student who's interested in a question can go out, take a course for 3 weeks or whatever it is to get some additional background on something, and then move on and do something else. So in my case, for example, if a student wanted to learn about third parties or wanted to learn about social movements, well, as much as I want to believe that every usable form of knowledge comes in 15-week chunks, 2 times a week, it may not necessarily be the case. It could be that they could get perfectly what they need actually in 3 weeks or 5 weeks rather than going through a whole 15-week class. They won't get all of the other scaffolding I would put around a discussion of third parties. So they won't get everything, but they'll get that piece. And maybe they can bring that and tie it into something else that they're interested about. So maybe we would do more modular courses or short-term courses. Maybe this is an opportunity to take advantage of technology for some short courses as well. Could be online, for example. Maybe we start to think about creating streams or themes of courses, not majors, not minors necessarily, but a set of courses that we're encouraging students to think about taking. Some might be a full 15 weeks, some might be 3 weeks, and so on. But I think we'll have to rethink the way that we, over time, this isn't a tomorrow kind of thing, but over time we'll have to rethink the way that we're, what we're offering to students and how we can do that. And as soon as you start saying any of this kind of thing to anyone at the university who has to deal with classroom management, their hair starts on fire and they say it can't be done. It won't be easy, but I'm quite sure it can be done. There's a lot of smart people, we can figure it out. But that does suggest there's also a place for technology in at least starting some of that, because you don't have to have the same physical meeting space to do that kind of work. Second, one of the challenges I mentioned was the cost pressures and the issue of state dollars. So what can we be doing in that area? Well, certainly we'll be advocating for higher ed, we'll be advocating for the U, and we'll be advocating for CLA. That's in our conversations on campus, with legislators, with regents, as we're searching for a new president, and so on. Okay? Secondly, fundraising to get our extra level of excellence is always critical, as is building stronger grant-seeking capacity. We have to explore new revenue options. Could be professional certificates, for example, catering to the business community or to other parts of the professional world. And we have to be very mindful and intentional about what we do and how we operate. Last year, I convened an instructional budget task force chaired by Penny Edgell and Michael Kim, had representatives from the dean's administrative team, from the chairs, and from the administrators. And their job was to think through our instructional budgeting model, come up with some recommendations for places where we might be able to, in a sense, be more efficient in what we do, and to free up those resources to do other things that we think are very important as well. The chairs and the administrators both provided feedback on that over the summer, and we'll begin to implement some of those recommendations over the course of the fall and the early spring. But that's just an example of, we understand that it's a very large part of our budget, and if we can find even some small ways to do that more efficiently, it opens up opportunities to do other things that we think are important. Within departments have to be thinking about how can resources be refocused to think about the department of 5, 10, or 15 years from now, and not so much how do we reclaim the department of 5, 10, or 15 years ago. I think in the 3-year planning process, I thought that our departments are really quite good at that, and we're thinking that way, and we need to just reinforce that, and to make it worth the while to think that way as well. And that means making sure we're able to provide or move resources, typically reallocate from one thing to another area, so the department can pursue its vision of where it wants to be some years down the road. So all of those are areas that we have to focus on. As I mentioned before, our budget is balanced, but we do have to be continuing to do a better job of aligning our structural expenses with our structural revenue, so that we're more confident that we'll hit a balanced budget or even have surpluses over time. And my basic guiding principle in all this is, how do we create the most robust environment for the staff, faculty, and students who are in the college to make this a place to thrive? I will just say I'm less interested in the college per se becoming net larger in terms of, say, how many faculty do we have, or how many staff do we have. That doesn't mean there might not be targeted growth in certain places, but overall, the college is unlikely to be getting any bigger in terms of people. I want the people who are here to really be in an environment where they can get their work done at the highest possible level. And that's where the reallocation, really being thoughtful about how does a department, maybe it stops doing activity A so that it can do activity B that it cares about. The last on the challenges I want to mention are the changes in technology. We are not going to be the only major industry that manages somehow to survive unscathed through technological change, and to think that we are would be would be somewhat risky. And of course, many of us have already started to change our behavior pretty dramatically. If you think of faculty recruitment and how Skype interviews have taken over the meetings, taken over interviewing at meetings, for example. Our own research has integrated technology a lot. Our teaching and our outreach has to an extent as well. So it's already there to some degree. And so for me, as we think about the technology issues, the key is to focus on what can we do with the technology that we couldn't do before, but that we actually want to do. So what are the upside? What's the positive of the technology, as opposed to what do we fear that the technology might bring? And that's where we're going to have ultimately our most success. And so whether that means finding, it gives us new audiences we could reach. It gives faculty more flexible time. If you teach an online class, for example, you don't have to be in the classroom at a certain time. So your research time is a little bit more flexible. There are a number of ways of thinking about what the technology can bring that I think we want to emphasize more than I think some of the worries and the risks that tend to get most of the public attention. Jeff Simpson, the chair of psychology, reminded me the other day, this is also a skill for our undergraduate students as well. I mean, for them to work through online materials, that's something they're going to be doing in their careers very extensively over time. They may even be asked to develop it as they move along. For our grad students who are going into teaching positions, if they can say that they actually know how to conduct and work in an online environment, even if it's a hybrid environment, that's going to be a net advantage for them as they're applying for jobs. So there are a lot of good reasons to do this and not to view the fear. It is expensive. It's not necessarily a cost saver, but it does provide us with some potential flexibilities that I think all of us demand now, and I think our students may increasingly demand as well. Second area I wanted to talk about was our roadmap, volume 2 of our roadmap. The roadmap began in 2014. We pulled together 5 goal teams of over 100 faculty, students, staff, and alums, and they generated recommendations for us around 4 key goals. One was the relentless pursuit of research and creative excellence. One was improving diversity and inclusion throughout the college. One was building a deeper culture of public engagement. And one was ensuring that our students were ready to hit the ground running at the highest level upon graduation for their careers and for their life. In these areas, together we were talking about being a destination. These were helping us to think about being a destination college, the kind of place that we would be on the short list of students, faculty, staff, and partners, community partners from around the country who would want to work with us because of the high quality of what we do. Over the course of this past summer, we did some refreshing of the roadmap that we're calling Volume 2 to outline a series of next steps to further implement these goals. And let me give you some examples of the kind of things that we're trying to do. First, we are re-emphasizing this idea of being a destination college, and that our goal in becoming a destination college is not just to make us feel good about ourselves, but our goal in being a destination college is, and I'm sorry if it sounds corny, but that's how we help make the world a better place. It's through this work that we do. It's through having great graduates, undergraduate students and graduate students. It's through great research and creative work. It's through high-level engagement. That's what starts to change lives of our students here, but also beyond the campus as well. And ultimately, that's our goal. I mean, that's why we do what we do. So we'll want to make sure that that's very clear as we're talking about the roadmap, that is a driving principle of the roadmap. As I said, we're expanding and further developing some of the things that we've already done on the roadmap. So in the area of readiness, for example, we are implementing a comprehensive internship strategy for the college, which has been worked on over the past year or so. And we're launching that, have started to launch it already, and we'll further launch that particular strategy. We're also providing new support for graduate students who are considering careers outside of academia. In the area of research excellence, we are working to increase small grant funding and to increase and regularize summer funding for graduate students. We know it's important from a humane living perspective, and it's also important from a recruitment perspective as well. These are just some examples that we're working on. In engagement, we will be aiming to develop courses for faculty and grad students who are interested in being public scholars and being more in the role of a public intellectual, really helping people develop that particular skill set. And we will be working to launch the Humanities Engagement Hub as well. And then in the area of diversity, we will be formalizing a diversity initiative for the college, and we will be creating a dedicated leadership position for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So those are some examples of the kind of things we're working on. We will be releasing in fairly short order the Volume 2 document, so you can see some of the other plans that we'll be working on over the next 3 years. And then lastly, I want to talk about fundraising, our capital campaign. We launched our capital campaign back in November, I believe it was, of 2017. Great event, and it's been a terrific year as well in our Shattering Expectations campaign. In fiscal year 2018, we raised almost $20 million for the campaign, and we have raised $112 million total since the campaign started. Our goal for the campaign is $150 million, so we're 75% of the way toward that goal. Since the start of the campaign, we've had over 17,000 donors, nearly 7,000 first-time donors, and over 650 faculty and staff who have given to one fund or another. We have 3 major support areas in our campaign. The first, over here on the left, is you can think of that as, in a sense, a career readiness, kind of attracting students and developing internships, research opportunities, learning abroad, and so on. Those kind of extra skills that they develop beyond the classroom. So providing scholarships and fellowships in those areas. As you can see, we've reached 34 of our $50 million goal there. Over on the right-hand side, this is our goal around inclusiveness, access, and diversity, which we refer to in our plan as engaging every voice in the drive to discover. We have achieved 70% of our goal here, about $24 million, and this would be scholarship support for low-income students, for transfer students, first generation, and so on. Okay. And then lastly, in the middle group, our largest goal is around research and engagement. And this is traditionally the hardest area to raise money from because people are used to being students and they like to give scholarships. That's an easy one. It's a little harder sometimes to convince people to support faculty research or grad student research and so on, or public engagement. But we've actually been doing exceptionally well there also. As you can see, we're actually at 74% of our goal in that area. In the roadmap report, you'll get a more detailed listing of the various gifts that we've gotten, but let me give you a few examples. We have increased our internship support by 1,500% during this campaign. In other words, we had $300,000 of scholarships in July 2011 for internships, and we now have almost $5 million in scholarships in June of 2018. As I mentioned earlier, we have increased our diversity among our faculty, and the funds that we've gotten through the campaign have helped to support some of that hiring that we did. So over the last 3 years, 1/3 of our faculty have been faculty of color or American Indian. We selected the 3rd cohort of the Tolley Family Faculty Research Awards. This is a program for new associate professors to help them launch on their next project. And we've had over 20 of our associate professors over the last 3 years receive these awards. This is a $1.5 million fund over a 5-year period. We have been able to fund 9 mini and 2 full interdisciplinary collaborative workshops. I referenced those before. There's another deadline for that coming up soon, so I encourage you to look into that. But again, that creates these communities around a theme, a question, a topic, and brings together people from across the college and even beyond the college as well. We also were able to use some gift money to launch the Commons for Research in the Social Sciences. The Commons is a convening spot for conferences, competitions, discussion groups, workshops, training courses, and so on that are focused on managing, analyzing, visualizing, and interpreting and presenting data. And so we see this as a great resource that will grow over time. And lastly, as an example, we've received transformative gifts of faculty and grad student support in a number of departments. There's three that I'll mention: Asian languages and literatures, German, Nordic, Slavic, and Dutch, and philosophy. All received exceptional gifts that have allowed them to do things that they were never able to do before. So all of that puts us on a really strong road as we are heading into now our next 150 years as a college. And all of these accomplishments that I've talked about are, they can be plans on a sheet of paper, but it really takes people like you in the room. It takes the faculty and staff throughout the departments and the college offices to really make it a reality. And so I'm incredibly grateful for the work that everyone does on these projects day after day and week after week and month after month. You've made an amazing amount happen over the last several years. And there are many, many great examples that I could point to. I will just give you a few by way of example. The RIGS initiative, which I mentioned earlier, created a critical race and ethnic studies graduate student group. They hold bi-weekly meetings throughout the academic year where they can support and share their writing, their research, their proposals, as well as just more generally creating a community. Gee-whiz professor Chigna Desai and research associate Carrie Smalkowski, with a great deal of help from Amelia Swite back there, worked with middle school students from Northeast Middle School in Minneapolis and helped them create their own digital stories on important questions ranging from social justice to bullying, and introduced them to college. We brought them to campus for their graduation ceremony, and they've been working with our undergraduate students over the course of almost a year. So they're getting a sense of what it means to start to think about college and what it means to be a college student. And so that's a project in an 8th grade set of classrooms. The economics department, the Heller Hurwitz Economics Institute, has held very well attended public sessions on public pensions, climate change, and trade policy, among other topics, over the past year. We've had a great deal of success with our faculty engaging in career readiness. And I will say this is one of the things that marks us as distinctive around the country, that our faculty have been so heavily involved in this career readiness work. The last year we had 24 faculty fellows who were learning more about how they could integrate career readiness into their coursework. We have 14 more this semester, and there's space in the spring semester for faculty who want to participate as well. It's really critical that faculty be involved in this, because what we want is for students in their classes to be hearing from a professor or from an instructor, this is how what you're doing connects to one of the core competencies in CLA career readiness, whether it's digital literacy, applied problem solving, or whatever it might be. And we also know that there's a power of mentorship that comes with a faculty member or an instructor talking to a student about their future. There's been a lot of research on this lately, and it is one of our advantages as a residential college. It's one thing we never want to lose. Students who come here and can establish even one relationship that feels like a mentoring relationship, doesn't mean that it has to be you're meeting with somebody every week, but somebody cared about them at some point and said, I care about your future. This is how what you're doing right now ties to that future. It has an amazing effect on students later on, and it is something that they remember forever. For those of you who saw my monthly memo a couple of weeks back, I had an amazing mentor like that as an undergrad student who recently passed away, and I wrote a little bit about him and what he meant to me and how he had a life-changing effect on me and the way that I thought about the world and I thought about being a professor and everything else. That gets replicated thousands of times every day. And through professors talking about I care about your future enough to talk about how this class is building some skills that will tie to your life when you leave is a very powerful thing for students to hear. In that area also of career readiness, I want to say we've had a number of our departments that have committed to being very extensively involved in working career readiness concepts throughout their curriculum, and I'm quite pleased and thankful to them for doing so. So those are just a few examples among many examples that I could give. Now, as I look back 4 years ago, in October of 2014, I gave an address we called the Road Ahead address. And I said that as we look back 4 or 5 years down the road, there are some things that we would want to see, to know that we were starting to make some progress. And let me just run through what these are. That we provided tools and resources for faculty research, and we have removed or at least reduced obstacles to innovation and creativity. That we've made great faculty hires and strengthened our national reputation. That we've ensured our students have the kind of exceptional educational experience only possible at an R1 institution, and that they understand how their education directly translates into their life after campus. That we have improved our ability to recruit and support the best graduate students. That we have established excellent relations with our alumni, our community, and our employers. That we've committed ourselves to diversity and inclusion through all that we do. That we've created an environment in which our staff can develop professionally and thrive. And tying probably all of these together, that we have been strong advocates for the liberal arts and the power of the liberal arts. Thanks to all of you, thanks to the people in your units and your departments, I think we've made great progress on all of those, and we obviously have more work that we'll want to do over the coming years. And to me, it's not just a list of interesting criteria or potential goals, it's really the why of it all. And that ties back to the point that I made before. That our commitment, I think all of us in this room are in the business of trying to think about how do we transform lives, how do we improve lives. And that could be the individual student, could be a family that benefits from a student's education, could be a community, could be the whole society, or beyond. That is the work that we do in the college. And I'm really proud and grateful for the work that all of you do to make that happen. As you know, we are in our 150th anniversary year. We have a number of events coming up. I won't go through the whole long list, but let me just give you a few that are coming up soon. CLA will be next week, September 27th. That'll be out in Northrop Plaza from 11 to 2. And it's basically time to have some fun with some colleagues. So just hang out. CLA Time Past, Time Present, Time Future. This is the 150th anniversary faculty celebration, a set of panels, performances, presentations, and so on. And this is really intended to give us all a sense of the wide variety of work being done in CLA, and the very interesting work being done as we start thinking about the next 5, 10, 15, and 150 years of CLA. Some of the sessions in that October 9 through 12 period: neuroscience and the human condition, digital humanities and the future of liberal arts, space, land, and environmental humanities. And there are a number of others as well. The Arts Quarter Festival and the performances and presentations by faculty and students that are will be part of that October 9 through 12 period as well. So in politics, there's an old saying that was very popular in the city machines of the past, that you should vote early and vote often. So I will encourage you to attend early and attend often to these panels. There'll be any number of them that I think you'll find fascinating, maybe even particularly the ones that aren't really in your area, in your field. It's a way to explore without having to fly to a conference, to go hear what people are talking about in these other areas. So with that, let me thank you again for everything that you do to transform lives and to transform our college, and I'd be very happy to take your questions. Thank you.